Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds, and we are officially in February. And we're already sitting here. I know all of us are probably sitting here saying, how is it already February? That's how I feel. Last month, the theme really revolved around this whole idea of 2026 rebranding, right? I've talked about confidence. I talked about emotional abuse, talked about, New Year's resolutions, all of these things. And at the core of each and every episode, I kind of reminded you that there's only 12 squares on a calendar. We're down to 11 squares now. And so every month is a chance to do something with your life, with yourself. And part of this is why I'm starting February with this episode. I'm sure you guys are sitting here assuming, oh, she's just going to talk about love and relationships. And you're kind of half right. I'm talking about friendship and community today because I think it's so important. And my recent visit, yes, I said visit, with my dad kind of inspired this episode. If you guys have followed the podcast for a little while or followed me on social media, you'll already know this. But for the people that are new here, last January, I ended up going no contact with my father. And after 8 months, we started speaking again after I wrote him a letter, kind of just detailing why I decided to go no contact, what he could do on his end if he wanted to salvage our relationship, and kind of going from there, just laying it all on the table. And my father's alcoholism was a large portion of why I chose to go no contact. And so something I've talked about is he is working towards sobriety. He's not entirely sober, but he's working towards it. And so we finally got to the point where he came to visit me. And that was a really huge step, not just because it was the first time I was seeing him in nearly 2 years, because I hadn't seen him since I got laid off in 2024. But it was a huge step too, because it was always on me to maintain the relationship. It was always on me to go visit him. It was never him going out of his way to come here. And so he did. He took a flight, which he hates flying, and he took a flight to come see me. And that already said a lot. But the visit itself, I can't even put into words, because I'll start crying, how good it was. And I had so much anxiety leading up to it because, again, every other time I visited with my dad, it was very anxiety-inducing. I didn't know what version of him I was getting. But it really felt like I had my dad back from when I was a kid. And again, this doesn't erase all the hurt and all the pain. It doesn't erase his actions of the past, but we were making up for lost time. And we had that conversation. We didn't have a lot of heart to hearts, because I think we said everything we needed to say in our letters, and we just both really wanted to move forward. But something he did say to me when I was dropping him back off at the airport is he was just like, I really enjoyed listening to you this weekend. I really enjoyed hearing about the woman you've become, and I'm so proud of you. And that meant a lot because for the first time in my life, I felt like my dad was listening to understand me and to get to know me. Dang it, I'm already crying. And that's kind of what inspired today's episode, is because my dad is somebody who, when I think of the male loneliness epidemic, I think of my father. And he is someone who, over time, through his own hurt and wounds, he self-isolated. I don't need people was his mindset. I just want to go be a mountain man and live in the woods. And that loneliness created such bitterness and resentment that it kept him trapped in a cycle of being unable to connect, but wanting connection. And, he was lost. He'll say it himself. He was lost for a very, very long time, and he's slowly finding his way back and making amends. And he's not perfect by any means, but he has come so far. He even just looks physically better. And, I attribute part of his success to the men's group he's found at his church. And he even said, he's like, we talk about the things we've experienced, our failings, blah, blah, blah. And, and that's why I say it inspired today's episode, because I truly believe that loneliness is a sickness and community is the medicine. And nobody thrives in isolation. And I think isolation is part of why the world is the way it is, especially in America. We've got this individualistic mindset. And I do agree, you have to put yourself first and, chase your dreams, all these things, but self-isolating, the whole locking in thing. And I'm going to touch on all of this in this episode. But overall, I think that's why we are seeing people lack empathy, because they don't care unless it affects them. And I think that comes from being hyper individualistic. And so all of that to say, this is not a political episode, but I just wanted to share that thought. But I think that, people will say life isn't all about love. And I heavily, heavily disagree, because love and self-identity are the two things people search for most in this world. And they are heavily intertwined. And a lot of people spend their lives looking at all the wrong places for it. But this conversation isn't going where you think it's going. I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about platonic love. And that is why I want to talk about the phrase, you have to first be a villager to have a village. I've said it. You've probably said it. You've seen it on some sort of social media post. It's a very popular phrase now. And I agree. You do have to do that. You have to give in order to receive, right? But something that goes along with that is people love to say that, oh, the cost of community is inconvenience. I've even probably said it on an episode. You could probably go back and call me out for that. But something I want to reframe this year, and we're actively working towards reframing, is the idea that community isn't an inconvenience, it's an investment. You have to reframe your mind around it, because the word inconvenience already has a negative connotation, right? You're already putting a bad taste in your mouth about it. And of course, it's inconvenient to have to go pick your friend up from the airport during rush hour, or drive 30 minutes out of your way to go to some event you agreed to a month ago and you really don't want to go to. We've all been there. But community is an investment you're taking, because I'm not a finance girl. I'm not a finance girly. I have an accountant. I'm like, here, do my taxes for me. I don't want to deal with this shit. But the basics I know of investment is you're putting money in, it's a risk, and you're in the hopes of getting a reward. That's how you have to look at community. You are giving your time, which is the most valuable asset you have in your life. It's a finite asset that you have in your life. And you are giving it to somebody in the hopes of getting something in return. You're investing in this person. You're investing in their life. And so that's how I think we need to start looking at community in 2026 is it's an investment. The cost of community is investment. It's not an inconvenience. It's like all your friends are basically just investment portfolios, if you want to look at it that way. But, people want connection, but they cancel plans in the name of self-care. And we want community, but we fear rejection and all of these things. So we just continue to self-isolate. We want to be heard, but we're so afraid to be seen, and we don't know how to listen to others. Like, we're so afraid to give because we automatically assume we're not going to get anything in return. And I don't know how and why we got there, but that could very well happen, and people are going to do that. But you need to not hold everyone to just assume everyone's going to be like that. You know what they say about assuming things? And if you've never heard this, here you go. It makes an ass out of you and me. But But when it comes to friendships are something I have always prided myself on being there for people. Again, we can examine all the wounds and stuff of why I am the way that I am at a later date. But I've always prided myself on being a good friend to people. And I will never forget a time in college when I was having a falling out with one of my friend groups at the time. And some of those friends I've never spoke to again. Some of them I'm still friends with to this day. We kissed and made up. But I will never forget a girl in the friend group who, her and I were never close. We just happened to be in the same friend group. We never had anything in common. We never really had our own relationship. But I will never forget something she said to one of the girls in the friend group who was being nasty towards me, is that she is such a good friend about me. She is such a good friend to all of you, and you all take her for granted. And the fact that somebody who, I will never forget that because it means the world to me, that somebody who I really had no personal relationship with other than we had just happened to be in the same friend group, saw that in me, was very validating and something I very much needed at the time. And it makes me have respect for her to this day. But with friendship, and why I brought that friend group up is because that, I look at that moment as one of the moments where my hyper independence stems from. How many of us have said in our lives, I'm just going to do it myself about anything. I'm just going to do it myself. I can take care of myself. I don't need anybody. This mindset, there is something to say about letting people show up for you that is so vulnerable. And the art of letting people show up for you is a way to form friendships that you wouldn't have otherwise had, because people will surprise you if you let them. Hyper-independence isn't pride, it's protection, right? When someone is super hyper-independent, it's like me, it's because you've been taught that there's safety and self-sufficiency. Nobody can disappoint you because I'm taking care of everything myself and I don't need anybody, so nobody can hurt me. And here's the thing, I love my independence. I pride myself on it. I love being strong. I love that I have built such a life for myself. I am proud of that fact. But something I've had to realize about my own hyper-independence, it's just a coping mechanism. It's hyper-independence is a trauma response. It's a fear of being let down, unwanted, rejected. Like, there is a strength in hyper-independence, but you also have to recognize it for what it is and where it came from. And like I said, I love my independence. I love being strong, but I look forward to the day where I have a partner who says, I see that you can do this on your own. I see that you're strong. I know that you can do it, but I am here to help you, so let me help you. And I think a lot of women, that is what they want in a man. Someone who says, I know you can do it, but I want to do it for you. And we can trust that when they say they're going to do something, that they do it. There's nothing hotter than a follow through, okay? There's nothing hotter than being a man of your word. I think that is the sexiest thing a man can do, is be a man of his word. And here's the thing about that statement. That's what my friends have done for me. That's what my community has done for me. And that's why I wanted to talk about today's episode, because, and I think this shows the difference of the male loneliness epidemic. You don't hear about a women's loneliness epidemic, even though there are women who are lonely. You're not hearing about it partially because women have been really good at pouring their love into their friendships and building community elsewhere. Men have not done the same, where men have gone towards hyper-individualism, isolation. I need to lock in. I need to disappear in 2026, blah, blah, blah. Women are flourishing and dominating in third spaces. As a woman who grew up feeling unseen, I learned to love by overgiving and overextending myself to people. I poured so much of myself into others, fixing, showing up, going out of my way for them, caring, just in the hopes that one day someone would do the same thing for me. And that is why I've always prided myself on being a good friend. And in my adulthood, the pendulum swung the other way, and it turned into hyper-independence for a while. Over time, I've come back and found balance. And I realized that I wasn't too much, and I wasn't asking for too much. I was just asking it of the wrong people and the wrong friends. And to take that a step further, it's not necessarily that those people I was asking didn't care. It's frankly that I wasn't a priority in their life, and that's okay. We only have so much love, time, and energy to give people. So it's better to give 5 people your all instead of 10 people a little drop of yourself. And if you're someone who feels like they have no friends, I would beg you to ask yourself, look at the people you do consider friends. How many of those friendships are really just so surface level because you're giving this person a little bit, this person a little bit, and you're just, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands right now. You're just giving people little drops of yourself instead of actually pouring into the friendships the way that you should. Friendships and life are so messy, but there's something so beautiful about that. And when you learn to accept the chaos of it and accept that people are going to disappoint you, accept that people are going to hurt you, it's going to make navigating your life easier, and it's going to allow you to come out of your hyper-independence, because hyper-independent people oftentimes are some of the loneliest in the world. And they're the one, but you think that they're the ones you never have to worry about because they have their shit together, they're so successful, whatever it is. People don't recognize that someone who struggles with hyper-independence and not needing anybody is actually oftentimes the loneliest and really struggling inside. And so if someone came to your mind when I said that, I would really encourage you, just reach out and check on them, because you never know how much it may mean to them. But I've talked about the ways in which I think hyper-independence too, and just this lock-in mindset has fueled the ways in which people look at the world in black and whites. And you guys know, I always say the only thing black and life about life is that when we meet somebody, they're either going to be in our lives until the day that we die, or at some point we'll have our last conversation with them and we probably won't even know it. That's the only thing that's black and white about relationships in life. But People think that two truths can't exist at once because they think in black and white. Here's the truth. You can be soft and you can be strong. You can do things on your own and accept help from others. Resilience is a strength, but too much of it makes you weak. And just because you cry when you pick yourself back up off the ground does not mean it doesn't count as a success. And I want everyone to remember that when you're struggling with hyperindependence, like it is okay to let people in. Because at the end of the day, the more we have this protect your peace mindset, it's really just making you more lonely. And like I said, canceling plans with friends in the name of self-care. If you're having a bad mental health day, I get it. Do what you have to do, but pay attention to how many times you do it. Pay attention to how many times you flake on plans or you RSVP to something and then you don't show up. Because if you're not paying attention to it, the person who you're doing that to is. And so you can't be surprised when suddenly they stop inviting you places. Like, relationships cannot be one-sided and they have to be a two-way street. But here's the thing, the only thing people get by locking in and isolating themselves is exactly that, loneliness. I'm not saying like, don't lock in and focus on your dreams. That's not what I'm saying. But when you have a community around you who is helping you support your dreams, it's going to take you even further. There's this weird, almost like with the whole lock-in thing, it's almost like a Clark Kent Superman fantasy. Like, people think that I'm just going to lock in as Clark Kent and disappear and I'm going to come back as Superman and I'm going to be so successful and I'm going to come out of the gate and people aren't going to recognize me and oh my God, it's great. It's like if that's your fantasy and your kink, fine. But like the thing is, Clark Kent and Superman, he still had Lois Lane. He wasn't truly isolated. And I don't know why we think that if you have some sort of ambition, it means that you need to isolate yourself in order to achieve those goals. But that I would argue that it does the opposite. I mean, maybe there are people who will prove me wrong with that. But for me personally, as a person, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a lot like me. I would argue that's probably the worst thing you can do. Yes, lock in and focus, but have your people that you confide in, have your people that you can lean on who are going to help you, motivate you along the way. That motivation has to first start within you, but your community around you will rally. It's not you versus the world. Like, people have this mindset, it's me versus everybody else. Bleh. No, it's not. Isolating yourself like that weakens your ties to your people and to your community. And so it's the same thing as when a girl gets a boyfriend and everyone feels like she drops off the face of the earth. It's because she's isolated herself from her community. This is the same principle here. Like, isolating yourself from your community, all it does is weaken ties. And for me personally, I've seen it in my own career that community and outreach is the reason I am so successful and where I am at today, because there are so many people who I crossed paths with who it came back around and I've gotten to work with them. I've gotten opportunities from them, all because I was kind, maintained contact, and I was there from them. Like, I don't know if you guys remember when I had the tour bus fire on my first ever tour in October of 2024. And I had people who I had never met reaching out to me in the photo community here in Nashville, offering me gigs, offering to lend me gear. My one friend, he put together an entire kit for me to get through the rest of the tour. And some of those people I still have become close friends of mine. And we still keep in touch. We get coffee. We go work from coffee shops sometimes. We catch up. Like, community is so important on your path to success. And that's why they say, like, don't forget where you came from. I think this is what they're talking about when they say that, is you can't forget the people who uplifted you when you no longer had the strength to uplift yourself. And here's the thing, like, it's easy when an invite comes in to be like, oh yeah, I'll go, maybe I'll go, whatever. And I get it. Life happens. We get sick, work comes up. You really aren't feeling well that day. You're mentally out of it. But life isn't frictionless. People want just a smooth ride, and life is full of bumps and potholes and all of these things. It's not going to ever be frictionless, and we've developed an intolerance for friction in our lives, and we perceive that if there is friction in some sort of relationship, that, oh, this person is drama, I need to get rid of them, they're toxic. Like, no, that's not the case. Protecting your peace turns into avoidance then. And this is why we're seeing friends talk about being ghosted after a fight, or, girls online talk about it, how they're like, I don't understand how we're giving these shit men a million chances to dog us. And then I'm losing a friend after one misunderstanding. And here's the thing. so we're just ghosting our friends after a fight because nobody reaches out. But there comes a point where, again, like I said, it's avoidance. And there has to be a want on both ends, right? There has to be a want to salvage the relationship. And that's a big piece of this as well. You can't salvage a friendship with somebody who doesn't care, pretty much. And that's where we need to recognize, like, if they're going to be avoidant, if you're not a sweep things under the rug kind of person and you want to talk it out and this person is just avoiding, there's nothing you can do there, and you need to take your energy back. But with this conversation too, I mentioned catching up with people. Catch-up culture it's great to catch up with people, but you don't want to fall into a pattern and cycle of catch-up culture with your friends. And I want you to look at your phone and look at when the last time you sent a "we need to catch up" text. Did you ever follow up on that? Because a lot of people, this is what they do. They send that "we need to catch up" text, and then they don't follow up. They're like, well, I told them to tell me when they were free. You're the one that reached out for the plans. If you mean it when you say, I want to catch up with somebody, take the initiative. It's like a date. You're asking them on a date, you plan the date. Same principle here applies. But catch-up culture is just a never-ending hamster wheel with our friendships, because instead of forming new memories with old friends, you're just watching them live their lives either through a phone screen or hearing about it from a phone call. And I get it I get it, because I live far from where I grew up. I am constantly having that let's catch up phone call with my best friends. However, we also still actively make new memories. Like in just a couple weeks, I'm going skiing with Jill, and we're going to have a little girls' weekend in the mountains, and it's going to be super cute and fun and blah, blah, blah. Like, we do what we can to still form new memories while playing catch up in each other's lives and staying informed on each other's lives. But catch up culture, I think, is part of why friendships fade away, because you're not forming new memories and keeping that bond going. Over time, both parties are just going to get exhausted of hearing about the other one's life when you haven't, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing holding the friendship together. I don't know why I did this. I'm doing a lot of weird hand movements today. But it's not always bad, because this is how adult friendships survive, right? Is you make plans for a month out, let's go to dinner, let's catch up. You're still going to dinner, you're doing something with somebody, but you want to be intentional with your friendships. And if you're falling into a cycle of just let's catch up, that sucks. And it's gonna burn the friendship out. I think this is why we need to bring back spontaneous hangs. Hey, are you busy tonight? Can I just come over for an hour? Let's catch up. Oh, me and Hannah, we always do. Hey, you want to go get a sweet treat? We went and got a sweet treat the other day, last minute, and we love our little sweet treat runs. And we sit in the Jenny's and we just yap about the stupidest shit. Like, I think we were yapping about, it was right before the Grammys. We saw Chappell Roan's Grammy outfit and we were just like yapping about it. Friendships don't have to be so overcomplicated. And I think a lot of people overcomplicate them. Another thing I think with friendship that people do is they conflate friendship with community. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of friendships start out of community, but not every person you know in community is your friend. Both types of relationships are important in our lives and they play a crucial role, but they need to be treated differently, and you need to manage your expectations of those people differently. Community shares interests, whereas friendships share lives. Like, community, it's you bonding over a shared hobby. Your friendships, this is where the investment piece comes in. You're investing in these people's lives. Community relationships, those are going to disappear when the context does. I think this is why we see so many friendships fall off after high school and college, or you leave a club, whatever, because they were friends, yes, but they were friendships based in community. They were convenience friendships. They weren't long-lasting friendships. My life and my friendships have improved when I started looking at my relationships in this way, and I started recognizing what expectations I could hold certain people to and the ways in which I showed up in these friendships as well. I'm not going to hold my friend who I only see when we're going out on the weekends to the same standards and expectations as I hold someone like Haley and Hannah, who know all my deepest, darkest secrets, would bury a body with me. Those are two different types of people, two different relationships, different sets of expectations. And if you're hearing that, you may say, well, that's unfair. They're all your friends. And it's like, but friends hold different places and spaces in our lives, and they should be treated as such. And I think when you are able to manage your expectations around friendships in that regard, they will all see significant improvements. Community friendships, they're built around an activity. Like I have my friends who are gym friends. That's how I made a lot of my friends in Nashville, was at the gym. Only some of those, I would argue, have turned into long-lasting friendships, but that's where I met a lot of people. Same thing, my photo video community here in Nashville, other tour photographers. I have a lot of community friends in that regard. Only a handful of them have turned into long-lasting friendships like Tyler and Rachel, and even my other friend, Steph. I don't know if I really talked about Steph on the podcast, but hi, Steph. But a majority of them are going to exist only in that community bubble. And when that bubble pops, that friendship is going to go with it. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that the people didn't care. It doesn't mean that you're irrelevant to them. It just means the bubble popped and it's okay. So if you're wondering, how can they turn into long-lasting friendships? Well, it starts, you guys got to hang out one-on-one outside of the community. Take the community piece out of it. Be curious, ask them about the basics of how to form a friendship. That's how you take that friendship to the next level, just like any relationship. And the best friendships too, we talk about a slow burn in dating a lot. I think a good and healthy friendship also needs to be a slow burn. You can be love bombed in friendships. I know I've done it, and I know I have been love bombed in friendships. And I actually talked about this with Haley the other day. We talk about this a lot, of how we look at some of the friendships in our lives, and the ones that have lasted and are the best are the ones that were a slow burn over time. And the friendships that ended up burning us and like being toxic and just shitty people in general were the ones that it was such a quick, oh my God, I'm obsessed with them. This is the best person I've ever met. They're amazing. Blah, 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 blah. Like it's the same thing as with a relationship. You can love bomb in a friendship too. And that is why it's so important too, to like, just let these relationships breathe. You can't force anything. Like you can't force people to choose to be in your life. And so what happens if your village is a Trojan horse, right? What happens if your community, they don't show up for you? You feel like they're not truly your friend. You're feeling left out. Like, what do you do when it's a Trojan horse? You feel like a Trojan horse. You feel like you've got all these people in your life. You have a million names in your phone. You're in all these giant group chats, but you still feel really lonely. I would argue it's because you haven't actually invested in these friendships to form like I'm in a big friend group chat. Only a handful of them I actually hang out with and talk to on the regular. Those are the people I consider like my close friends. And then everyone else is in the friend group. There is a difference. And, when I first moved to Nashville, I met a bunch of people at my job. Again, community-based friendships. We would all hang out and stuff, but I would always feel very left out. A lot of these people were already friends from college, and I remember crying to one of them being like, you guys say you want to be my friend and you guys say you want to include me, but like, I'm always the last to know of things. I'm always an afterthought, and like just feeling so frustrated. And again, I'm on good terms with these people. There was never really any bad blood, but it was just, I was asking the wrong people. I didn't fit in there. I was begging for space at a table where I did not fit and I did not belong. And it's not because I wasn't good enough to belong. It just, they weren't my people, and that's okay. And that's going to happen time and time again in your life. And you have to recognize that it's not always malicious. People don't have bad intentions. Like we're so quick to demonize people instead of just recognizing, oh, they already have all these really close friends who they pour a lot into. They don't really need to prioritize any new friendships, and they don't want to, and that's okay. It's not always this big dramatic thing of they hate me, I'm too much. Like accepting that we only have so much time and energy to give to people, that we need to choose it wisely. And so that's why I'm saying community, being a villager, it's an investment, because there is that risk that people aren't going to invest back in you. And that's when you need to pull it out of the market. Take your investment back. Invest it elsewhere. Look for something that's going to give you a better return on investment, however you want to use the analogy. But sometimes too, we've seen it. Your friends can be your biggest ops. They can be your biggest haters. That comes from a place of insecurity in themselves. And you need to have that. If you love them enough to have the conversation, do that. If you feel like this is a friendship that's draining you and it's fading and you don't want to do it anymore, take the investment back. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to say, I don't want to be friends with this person anymore. It happens. People change over time. Like we all change. But here's the thing. The uncomfortable truth is that sometimes people are not going to want to salvage a friendship, and that's okay. But having hard conversations is part of the investment that you have to do to have a true community, to have true friendships. You have to be able to have you have to be able to have hard conversations and be kind of confrontational sometimes. And a lot of people fall into that avoidance trap and they just don't want to do it. And that's why people just opt out of community. They're like, I'm protecting my peace. It's like a scapegoat for everything. I'm protecting my peace. I'm not dealing with this. No, you're actually being an avoidant asshole. And you're probably running from some form of accountability as well. There is a difference between actually protecting your peace and removing yourself from toxic situations and toxic people and taking back your power versus using that therapy speak to just run away from shit that you've done, from your problems, whatever it is, and just be avoidant. So how do we build a village? You have to first be the village. You can be a part of creating third spaces. You can host dinners. You can host game nights. You can just have people over, inviting people for coffee, joining clubs. Like, finding third spaces is how you start forming a village. It's how you start building community. And in those communities, you will meet long-lasting friends, hopefully. That's always the end goal. And this is part of why I wanted to talk about this topic too, is a big critique when I post podcast clips online, mainly from men. The complaint is like, oh, why is it okay for women to stop trying in relationships, but like when men stop trying, it's a problem? The thing is that women aren't not trying in relationships. They're just taking back their investment that they were putting into men and that time they were putting into men and putting it into their friendships. They're pouring that love into their girlfriends and they are seeing a much bigger return on investment, if we want to keep using this analogy. Men step into self-isolation. The only thing they're pouring into is themselves. And I'm not saying it's bad to pour into yourself. I advocate for that all the time on this podcast. But the difference is there comes a point where you're pouring into yourself so much that you can no longer you lose empathy, you lose the ability to connect with people. You end up struggling with loneliness. And this is what breeds bitterness and resentment. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, all loneliness does is the symptoms of loneliness are bitterness, resentment, anger. The cure is community and it's medicine. It's love. Love and community are the medicine. You guys get the point. That's why I'm so proud of my dad, because I know how hard it was for him to step out of that mindset. I know how uncomfortable it has been. But I've seen the ways in which it's worked wonders in his own life. And obviously on our relationship, it's thriving again. And, he's never going to be perfect, but none of us are. Life is about finding beauty in the mess. And it's so important that we as a society get back to pouring into our friendships and into our communities and all coming together for common causes and common good. I think this is why we have seen so much angerness and hatred in the world, is people are lonely. And when people are struggling with loneliness and struggling with bitterness and they see the things and they perceive others as having what they want and they feel that they deserve, that's how we've gotten here. So you have to first so if you don't know where to have a village and you can't find a village, build it, be the village. Something I haven't done it in a while, but I used to do all the time is I'm always the apartment that has people over for dinner. I cook dinner for my friends and I love doing it. Honestly, I've missed doing it. It's just I'm gone a lot on the weekends when I usually would do it. But same thing, my friend Steph, she always has the parties, the pre-games. She does Halloween. She's doing St. Patrick's Day. She's the host. And there's always one in the friend group. It's they're the host. That is their thing. They're building the village. That's what they're doing. It's not just that they're the host of the friend group. They are the building blocks of the village. And if you are looking at your friend group and you feel like, this person hasn't hosted anything in a while, and so that means I haven't seen my friends in a while. One, you need to tell that person who always does the hosting how much you love them and thank them and be appreciative. And two, Maybe you step up because maybe that person has gotten tired of feeling like they are pouring into you guys and getting nothing in return. We need to get back to trying to see the other side of things, trying to understand why somebody, and I'm not saying it's an excuse for bad behavior, don't come for me, but just understanding how and why people might be hurt and understanding how and why our actions affect other people and may hurt other people is a key part of having good friendships and having accountability in our lives. Woo! Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this. Why am I doing weird things with my hands today? I need another energy drink. No, I don't. That's too much caffeine. No one yell at me. Anyways, that is all for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds. If you're new here, thank you for listening. I know we've had a lot of new people join this season, and I'm so thankful for everybody who ever listens. And if you've made it this far, don't forget, if you want a little extra dose of tough love each month, you can sign up for the Stale Mail Club. You're going to get one of my photo prints, journal prompts, some fun little surprises every month. And if it's your first month, you get a bonus print. So sign up for that. The link will be linked in the episode. You can also find it linked in the bio of my podcast, Instagram, and TikTok. On TikTok, you can just search Not the Girl Next Door Podcast. Instagram, it's at Not the Girl Next Door Podcast. YouTube, search that as well. Subscribe there. Make sure you leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And I will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye for now.